whether it was the top Muslims that we debated, Shabir Ali, Azhar Rashid, whether it was Trent Horn, or whether it was Stefan Molyneux, the consistent pattern that we saw in every one of those debates was the assumptions of basic empiricism, evidentialism, self-evidency, and foundationalism, and brute facts. Everybody had this same assumption. And all we had to do was repeat the same critiques. Now, it differed between, which atheist or Roman Catholic or Muslim we were debating. But did you notice that in every debate, all of the people had the same epistemic assumptions? All of those positions operated on the exact same epistemic starting points and assumptions, as did T-Jumps, by the way, T-Dump. And so that's why people were pointing out, hey, wait a minute, Trent's arguments as a Roman Catholic are the same starting point as T-Dump. Yeah, exactly. And they're the same as Sam Harris's, you see. So if you go back to my debate, I pinned at the top of my debate. Let me find. I have to dig it up real quick here. I'll show you guys. I did a helpful little summary here at the top that's going to help us make this point. Screenshot that here. Now remember, they all have the same problem. And I think we can go ahead and turn that off now. I don't think we need that anymore because everybody seems to say that this conversation continues in that direction for the next, 2 hours. So we're not going to listen to all of it. But you get the point, right? And I can guarantee you that Sam Harris is not going to get out of that dilemma at all, for sure. So let's look at this point here. Dang it, where's my screenshot? There we go. So the way that we refute Harris's presupposition, again, note that it's going to be the same as refuting what we did with Molyneux. Arguments against God or metaphysics or the soul, anything transcendent, right, typically rest on rejecting anything immaterial. But arguments, numbers, logic, which are necessary conditions of arguing, are immaterial. And so what happens as the progress of epistemology, makes its self-destruction evident, is that it gives rise to a series of questions that the brute fact, self-evident, foundationalist, evidentialist, empiricist cannot resolve. Number one, the myth of the given, that there is a givenness to raw experience, that the uninterpreted data somehow becomes interpreted and meaningful, and that this piece of data, this present experience, somehow has a meaningful, necessary connection with past experiences of that data or that thing and future experiences, which relies on things like, for example, the existence of objects over time, identity over time. Likewise, the empiricist tradition self-refuted itself by raising the problem of the external world. There's no justification for a belief in the external world on empiricist grounds, because there's no way to know, if you're locked into the box of empiricism and knowledge only coming to you via immediate sense data, that there is an external world that gives you that meaningful imprint of the sense data, you see. Likewise, Hume raised the problem of induction. Any basic textbook on epistemology will also bring up Hume's objections and the continuance of the problem of induction. The famous philosophical essay of the 20th century by Nelson Goodman called The New Riddle of Induction simply restates David Hume's classic problem of induction. There's no way to justify or know that the future will be like the past. We might think that it will be, but we can't justify that by appealing to the past because it begs the question. The question is, how do you know that the future will be like the past? And thus, how do you have a basis to believe in, for example, scientific laws or that nature operates in a law-like fashion? If you can't resolve the problem of induction, then there's no justification for the belief in logical laws or laws of nature, or that the future will be like the past. In other words, the scientific method and scientific processes themselves presuppose the principle of induction, but the scientific method and empiricism cannot explain, justify, or give an account for the principle of induction. And if induction goes, also goes deduction. Likewise, these positions obviously could not give an account for the status of immaterial objects. What I mentioned above, arguments, numbers, logic, language, meaning, all are immaterial. And yet on a materialist, reductionist worldview, such as what Sam Harris has, those things don't exist. And yet in the midst of this, hour conversation that we've done, 45-minute conversation that we've done so far, we saw Harris appeal to all kinds of metaphysical things which are not reducible to matter, such as person, such as consciousness, such as values. Likewise, there's no such thing as properly basic beliefs. This is the problem of brute fact self-evidentialism, or self-evident truths, brute facts, or foundationalism, or strong foundationalism, or evidentialism, all of which kind of go together. On what basis do we know that belief X is properly basic and belief Y is not properly basic? In order to suss them out or ferret them out as distinct, namely as basic and non-basic, assumes a prior criteria, a presupposition of something more basic to determine and delineate the basic from the non-basic. That would thus mean that the basic beliefs are not actually basic, but they actually presuppose and rely on more basic and more fundamental beliefs. Thus, it's either a infinite regress or it's circular, and thus foundationalism doesn't work. Foundationalism does not accept the infinite regress idea, and it also rejects circularity. But thus foundationalism is caught in its own web. It cannot provide the very thing that it's seeking. There's also the problem of the underdetermination of data, which is that there's nothing, if you have, for example, a set of data within a scientific view or a theory or something like that, there's nothing that the raw data itself tells you which paradigm is the best explainer of the data. So, for example, if data about the similarity between a monkey in terms of his DNA and a human can equally be explained by a creationist paradigm or by an evolutionist paradigm, there's nothing about the data itself or a set of data that will tell you which of the paradigms is true or false. And this is what we see with so many of the atheists trying to make the scientific method become a grand narrative explanation. Scientific method is a tool for studying the natural world. It cannot give you metaphysical facts, it cannot justify itself, and it certainly can't give you grand metaphysical narratives telling you the origins of life. These are perennial problems for empiricism that remain unanswered and will never be answered because of the logic of empiricism itself, because it locks itself into that box, so to speak. So hopefully hopefully this is still going. It looks like this screen froze. Screenshot the screenshot. Is this still going? Can you guys put in the chat? Because on the back end, it looks like it froze, but it didn't give me any notification that it's no longer streaming. OBS says it's still streaming. Can one of you guys put something in the comment? Let me know if it's still going. But hopefully that last few minutes didn't get lost. If it was, I'll just do a separate video on these perennial problems, I guess. But I'll read a couple super chats here before we close out. Yes. Okay, so good. We're still streaming. It's just frozen on my end. First super chat. Where was that at? Alpha Asset. What's up, bro? He sends $5. Much appreciated. Billiam sends $2. Thank you, Billiam. Harold Elander sends $2. Could you do a 3 times exaggerated Paul Washer when ordering tater tots and a McPie reminiscent of hot lava? Also, what are your thoughts on the H narrative? I don't know if we can go into that. What are your thoughts on studying this in depth? What's your conclusion? Yeah, I don't know if that's going to be doable on even something like Rockfin. So, if I was going to do Paul Washer asking for tater tots and hot pies full of lava, this is precisely the way, my friends, I would do it as I cried. So hopefully you like that. Ribranium, $5. The atheists try to have a sole claim over reason and logic to understand the world and then just end up telling legitimate fairy tales. Exactly. Couldn't think of a better way to summarize the presuppositional critique, the transcendental argument, than that very thing, Ribranium. So brilliantly put. Let's see. Next super chat. I guess that was all. I thought we had another super chat. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully that was a sufficient breakdown of the gist. I think we got the gist of this podcast. I don't think there's anything else that was going to be too awe-inspiring, to use the phrase at the beginning of their podcast, in this podcast. So hope you guys enjoyed it, and everybody have a good night.